if it's usually a cave entrance or a door, right? If that's what you always do, then even if the inside of your dungeon is different, the going into it experience is not going to be the same. Why not make the whole experience different, right? So this is really important because this creates a different emotion / activity level. This changes the feeling of the game for the players, okay? Hello friends, welcome back to GM Philosophy. I am the GM Philosopher. I am a full-time professional D&D game master and TTRPG content creator. I've been running games for over 24 years, and the purpose of this channel is to empower game masters to run better games. So I'm super happy you are here, and today we're talking about dungeon entrances. A lot of people get this wrong, and I have some things I want to discuss as we go into this, okay? Now, there are some issues that come up when a lot of game masters make dungeons. And basically my thesis for this is that we tend to kind of overthink some aspects and underthink some. And the entrance, I believe, a lot of times we just underthink it too much, okay? We need to talk about something that's quietly making our dungeons worse, and that is not monsters, not the treasure. The traps, aren't really an issue. The entrance. This is not talked about near enough. Right? A lot of dungeon entrances are just plain boring. And I'm guilty of this too sometimes, and that's kind of why I'm making this, okay? So, a lot of times our dungeons start out by drawing a map, right? You need the players to get inside the dungeon, right? So what do? You put a little cave mouth at the edge of a map, 2 squares wide, nice and convenient, make it look nice with your VTT. The party walks up, looks inside, you have them roll a perception check, boom, this is the entrance to the dungeon, okay? Or there might be a wooden door with a lock on it, and then if the lock pick it or kick it open, right? And look, these things work. There's nothing technically wrong with a cave entrance or a wooden door being your entrance to the dungeon. But when every dungeon starts this way, it can start to feel less like exploration and discovery, and more like players are just walking through the front door of like a stereotypical thing. Like it can start to feel very much the same all the time. And we want to basically get away from that, right? We want to make it more interesting than that, okay? The entrance to the dungeon is the first impression, okay? It's the warning sign of what is to come, or it's a clue as to what players can expect. It is the moment where your players go, okay, what kind of place are we dealing with here? Right? And it gives them a first impression. And if it's new, it'll evoke that sense of exploration and discovery. If it's not, it'll be like, oh, another cave? Okay. Or another door? Okay. Right. And that's what we want to avoid. If every dungeon starts with the same little cave mouth or the same wooden door with an iron lock, you might be wasting one of the easiest opportunities to actually create tension, mystery, danger, and tone as they pertain to a dungeon. Now, here's the important part. The goal is not just to make the entrance weird or bizarre. This is where a lot of game masters can also go wrong, okay? You don't need to overdo it here creatively. You don't want every dungeon entrance to be some obscure, absurd circus contraption where the players need to solve a bunch of riddles and sacrifice a chicken and lick a moon rock, right? That can also get old, and you can get zany and weird and kind of be misrepresentative of the goal. So here's the real question. Does the entrance change the way the players interact with the dungeon? This is a question that a GM needs to ask. I believe the answer to this is yes, especially at the very beginning. It's going to change the way they approach it. It's going to change the way that it emotionally hits them in like the discovery and exploration part of the process. Because, see, to me, a really great game of D&D or any TTRPG, it will include 4 parts. It's going to include exploration and discovery. It's going to include a little bit of combat. It's going to include some drama and role play, and it's going to include some loot. So going into the dungeon can very easily be the exploration and discovery part, but it'll just turn into a functional thing if it's not actually exploration. Exploration needs to evoke a sense of something different, right? So let me give you some examples of how we can make entrances that actually create choices, right? Maybe create conflict, right? That maybe come at a bit of a cost, but without it being weird or zany. That can change the mood, okay? This is the kind of stuff we want to think about. So let me give you some examples of this. Hello, friends. Jim Philosopher here. Thank you so much for tuning in for this interview. I hope you're enjoying it. With that being said, I just want to let you know that I do have a book. If you are a game master who loves to create emotional resonance in your games, then this is absolutely the book for you. It's called The Advanced Art of TTRPG Game Mastery. This is my book I wrote in 2025 outlining how I create emotional resonance and emotional buy-in in my games. If you want to run the kinds of TTRPGs, D&D or whatever, that gets players actually emotionally invested, gets them wanting to come back again and again, gets them basically begging you to run another session. Like, please, let's play again soon. I can't wait for the next one. Then this is the book for you. I've been running games for over 24 years, and I've been a pro D&D game master and TTRPG content creator for several months now in 2026. And though I'm newer to the adventure of running pro games, it's going very well. And these are the secrets that help me to create games that players love. So with that being said, make sure you grab this link is in the description for about the price of a cup of coffee. You can learn all of my deepest, darkest secrets, tips, insights on how to make that happen. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the interview. So instead of just a cave mouth, maybe the entrance is a vertical shaft dropping straight down into the darkness. This changes a lot, and it's just a very small detail. But instead of it being horizontal, make it vertical. Now the party has to think, who's going to go first? Do they have enough rope to get down there? Can they get back out quickly? This is something they may think about. What happens if something cuts the rope while they're down there, right? What happens if they have to escape? Can they climb the rope fast enough, right? These are questions that will come up immediately. That entrance right away starts to create tension before they even go into it, before they even know what's down there. Okay, here's another idea. Maybe the entrance is a collapsed tunnel. Okay, the players could get in, but only by crawling on hands and knees through broken timbers and loose stone. Okay, now we have questions about armor. If you wear your armor, it's going to be harder to get through. You're going to be moving slower. Should they take it off, right? Maybe light armor will work better. Plate armor may cause more noise, right? If something attacks them while they're squeezing through the space, suddenly that entrance itself is part of the encounter, right? Then you have access to, maybe things like move earth, spells like that will actually be way more important than they usually would. So this provides opportunities for different types of tools, okay? Also, if you have people with digging tools, now's their time to shine, right? That barbarian may never use that pickaxe they bought in the beginning or the crowbar, but maybe now it becomes really important. And that's a cool thing too, right? So that's just another way to think about this. Another example could be the entrance is a staircase going down into the earth instead of just a cave entrance or a door, right? So this is simple. This is classic, right? But a staircase creates a different feeling than a cave mouth, right? A cave mouth is more like a wilderness thing. If there's a door, it's like, oh, maybe this was someone's hideout, right? But a staircase, it implies that someone actually built this with some kind of thought process, because stairs are way more, from an engineering perspective, way more complex than just a straight tunnel, right? So someone wanted at some point to be able to go down in here, right? Someone had a reason to be down here. That changes the whole vibe, because the dungeon entrance now seems like it was something that at least someone was intended to go down. So there must be a purpose. There must be a reason. There was thought behind it. And that also changes the way players are going to view that particular opening. Another kind of unique cave entrance idea is to make it a narrow ravine or something like that, right? The players can approach, but then they're funneled into a really tight space. Now, this feels very dangerous from a lot of reasons. First of all, if they can be seen from above, they're in danger of being ambushed. There might be loose rocks. Is something watching from the cliffs? Maybe they hear a little scratching or skittering. So the entrance shouldn't just be a decoration, okay? It should be something that actually provokes choice, evokes emotion, evokes buy-in, that kind of thing, right? You need them to really feel like this is an unknown and that they're going into something that they don't understand, at least fully. And also, this makes a lot of difference, because if it's usually a cave entrance or a door, right? If that's what you always do, then even if the inside of your dungeon is different, the going into it experience is not going to be the same. Why not make the whole experience different? Right. So this is really important, because this creates a different like emotion / activity level. This changes the feeling of the game for the players. Okay. A good dungeon entrance should teach the players something about the dungeon before they even enter it. I also believe this is true, right? A clean stone staircase with carved statues tells them one thing, but then a flooded sinkhole is going to tell them something else, or at least it's going to provoke, different theories about what's going on, right? A hidden trapdoor under an abandoned chapel is going to be a certain kind of thing, whereas a dragon skull with stairs carved into its mouth, that's going to be a whole different kind of vibe, right? I one time had a dungeon that was literally inside an ancient dragon skeleton, and that created like the tunnel that went down, and they were walking through the rib cage. It was a cool dungeon, right? So that immediately paints a different picture too, right? The entrance, in a way, is sort of like a telltale sign of what they might find inside. It tells the players this is what kind of danger they're walking into without giving away too much information. It's just a little clue, but it provokes imagination and thought and feeling about it. Okay. Now, I do have some easy dungeon entrance ideas that you can steal. I'm going to give them to you. Number one, a sinkhole entrance. Okay. Maybe the dungeon was not meant to be found. The ground just collapsed, and now the players, if they find it, they're staring down into an ancient chamber below. So the door was actually naturally made. There wasn't supposed to be a door. This is great because it implies age, accident, and instability. It also creates a practical problem, like how to actually get down in there, how to get back up, what else might collapse, okay? And that leads us to number two, the flooded entrance, okay? The only way into a flooded entrance is through a half-submerged tunnel or a fully submerged tunnel. Now the players have to deal with water, gear, breath, light, swimming, and maybe whatever is living in the water, like piranhas or alligators, right? So this is great for ruins, swamp dungeons, coastal caves, sewer systems, old temples, or anything with a gross moisture level, right? So here's idea number three that you can steal, the social entrance. Okay, this dungeon is not hidden at all, like in the wilderness. It's under a tavern or inside a noble's estate, beneath a temple. Maybe it's behind a locked door in a functioning city. Now the challenge is not just can we get into it? The challenge is actually can we get into it without people noticing, or can we gain access to it socially? So this gives you things like stealth, bribery, deception, politics, consequences, and this is even before the mystery of the dungeon itself starts, right? And that brings us to dungeon number four, the guarded entrance. Okay, so this changes the dynamic completely. Not every dungeon entrance should be abandoned. Sometimes the front door has guards, and this changes everything. Maybe they're bored cultists, maybe they're undead sentries, maybe they're mercenaries, maybe there's a monster that's learned how to use warning bells and cast the alarm spell. But the entrance becomes the first real test of the party, right? So there's are they going to fight to get in there? Are they going to try to sneak in? Are they going to try to talk their way in? Can they create a distraction? Can they pretend to be someone who's supposed to be there? So never underestimate the power of letting players come up with like elaborate or interesting plans, or sometimes crazy plans, to get into places like this. Those plans may work, and they may create an amazing story along the way. Hello, friends. GM Philosopher here. Listen, I have been a pro paid game master for several months now. I started my business in January of 2026, and then I went full time in March. How did I do it? I actually wrote a book all about that, the Pro GM's Guide. Listen, this book I wrote detailing how I went from having zero pro games at all to going full time running pro games. Now, keep in mind, running pro games isn't my only business. I have 5 full pro games going right now. I also do the YouTube, obviously, and I sell products. With that being said, I am highly confident that with the methods I've outlined in this book, and of course, this book is kind of based on using start playing games as your platform, but you do not have to do that. There are ways to get around that, and this book will be useful to you even if you're not using start playing, but it's specifically written with start playing in mind. And if you want to turn your love for the hobby, your talent for running games into either a like beneficial side hustle, or even consider going full time, then this is the book for you. All the crucial tips, tricks, trial and error, all the stuff I learned trying to figure out how to make it happen, I have put into this book. If you have aspirations of being a pro game master, this is absolutely something you need to add to your bookshelf. Grab this. Link is in the description for about the price of 2 cups of coffee. You can add this to your repertoire. Once again, thank you so much for watching the channel and the interview. And now let's get back to it. This takes us to number 5, the puzzle entrance. Now, this one, I don't use these very often. I kind of rarely use this one. I do sometimes. A puzzle entrance can be great, but if players can't solve it or it gets tedious or something, then it can feel kind of weird. Um, so you don't want to make the puzzle entrance the only way forward, and maybe you might even want to have a fail safe to make it way simpler if they can't solve it or if it just gets weird. Maybe have yourself a little backup plan for it. But the idea is the puzzle opens the entrance. And that's pretty much it, right? Whether they have to move some glyphs on the wall or they have to speak the answer to a riddle, right? If they fail, they may still be able to break in through the more dangerous part of the entrance. Maybe they can try to break the wall down, or they have to fight a monster if they don't solve the puzzle, right? But it is another design that you can deploy. Now let's talk about dungeon entrance number 6 on my list, the living entrance. So the dungeon is inside something alive, maybe a giant tree, maybe a massive dead worm, maybe a sleeping titan, right? Maybe it's inside a massive fungal growth. Maybe it's inside a whale, okay, or even a dragon. The entrance may immediately tell players this place is weird because, first of all, they have to get inside a living creature to even get to it. And that creates its own whole set of things. Maybe it's like a portal inside a Tarrasque, right? Or inside a Tyrannosaurus Rex. That in itself presents all kinds of weird and interesting problems. If the dungeon is alive or even used to be alive, the players may be thinking about biology instead of architecture, and that changes everything too, right? So this takes us to dungeon you can steal number 7, the vertical entrance. Okay, now this I think is the most simple but creative changes you can make. The dungeon doesn't go forward; it goes up or down. Right? A tower could be a dungeon, and you go up into it. A giant tree could be a dungeon; you go up into the trunk, and there's like a winding trunk. Right? A hole in the sky can be a dungeon. A ruined elevator shaft. You can have verticality to change how exploration happens because players have to think in layers, not in horizontal hallways. Okay, so let's go to number 8, dungeon number 8, the no entrance dungeon. The players know the dungeon exists, but there is no obvious way in. Maybe it was sealed, maybe it was phased out of reality. Maybe it only opens during certain types of weather or at certain parts of the year. Maybe the entrance moves around, right? Maybe they have to find someone who escaped from it to even know what's going on. That turns the entrance itself into almost like its own adventure. So it's almost like the dungeon isn't the issue, finding the entrance is. And that's a whole nother kind of effect, right? And you don't want to overdo this, right? But that can be a fun thing. Now, I'm not trying to say that a cave mouth is not a good dungeon idea. I'm not trying to say that slapping a door on the side of a cliff isn't a great dungeon entrance idea. Okay, sometimes it works, right? Sometimes the dungeon is a cave. Okay, and I'm not trying to tell you that that's a bad thing to do. However, if you are designing dungeons regularly, and every entrance looks the same, you may be leaving a lot of potential creativity and storytelling on the table. So here's the practical rule that I kind of want to leave you with. When you design a dungeon entrance, ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, what does this entrance tell the players about the dungeon? Question 2, what choice or problem does the entrance create? And question 3, how does this entrance affect retreat? Okay, and that third one is big. Game masters oftentimes forget about retreating, but the entrance is not only about how the players get in, it's also about how can they get out. A cave mouth is easy to retreat through. A rope shaft is not. Okay, a flooded tunnel is not. A magically sealed gate is not. Okay, so when players realize escape is not simple, the entire dungeon becomes more tense. Suddenly, they're not just asking, "Can we win this fight?" Right? Or can we find the treasure? They're asking, if we get in, can we get out if we have to? And that is really good dungeon design because it's going to provoke more creative questions. Okay, remember the dungeon is an environment and the entrance is part of that environment. So the next time you sit down to draw a dungeon, don't just slap a cave mouth on the edge of the map because that's what your brain might automatically do, or that's the easiest association, right? Stop for a few seconds and ask yourself, what would make this entrance really memorable? Like, what would make this really interesting and really kind of, throw off my players, make it different? What would make the players feel like they're crossing a threshold into new territory or unexplored territory? Because a great dungeon does not just begin with room 1. It actually begins before the players even step foot inside. And that's the psychological part of it. Okay. Now, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of GM Philosophy. Empowering game masters to run better games is the goal. You know what you know. If you know, you know. All right. Roll some D100s for me at your next game, and I will see you awesome people on the next one.